I want to ask you something in terms of development process. So earlier
Sure.
we were talking about large language models. You'd mentioned GPT-4, Claude, and Llama. You explicitly did not mention Bard, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, Bard is not as, you know, touted in the news these days compared to open source ones and what OpenAI is doing. Can you
Yeah.
maybe talk to me a little bit about like how, from the outside looking in or having inside experience in that, like what went well and what probably is not going well, or what are we missing in that story of Bard and Google competing in large language models?
So when I was at Google and we were working on like knowledge panels or web answers, where you search like where you Google for like, how do I uh, make write a cover letter, right? And you would see kind of like, you used to see kind of bullets of how to do it, surface somewhere from the web. We had a really high bars for accuracy for these things. Like we had to be accurate, like just at such a high rate to show anything, because otherwise, like a lot of people think Google is like the internet in general. Like some people think this. And so they're like, well, the internet said this. And like when you are the source of answers to so many people, there's a big problem if your answers are wrong or like significantly off. And the concern is like it would really hurt the Google brand if these questions were wrong. And I don't disagree with this, but what this means is when we were thinking about machine learning and applying it to search, it was not in the way ChatGPT did it, because ChatGPT is often wrong, right? You can ask it questions about historical events or people, and you might literally just get the wrong answer backed up with a lot of evidence, right? It's really funny that this happens, but it's part of the way it's designed. It's learned from the internet. People misstate stuff. Stuff sounds correct because it could, in theory, be pasted together in a sentence, but it's just wrong. And so I think Google always shied away from this concept, right? Because they thought, sure, we can make something that could come up with answers, but like that's not that good. But then ChatGPT did it, and it turns out it's incredible at a lot of things. Even if it's wrong for some facts, it is incredibly right for many things. Like if I just say like a simple question, let's say I want to convince my friend to move to Wellesley where I live, right? I could just say, tell me the 5 best reasons to move to Wellesley as a bulleted list. And, I could send that to my friend. I would read it knowing that my town and immediately know if it's right or wrong. And it's just like incredible that it can do that in such a well-run form. And so it turns out that like being wrong isn't as big as a problem because, I don't necessarily need the facts. Like if I were to ask it, like ask ChatGPT, and I'll get to Bard in a second, but if I were to ask ChatGPT, like, what is the population of Wellesley? I might not trust the answer, right? Because it's just kind of a number that I would much rather go to Google for. And if Google shows me a web answer where it says it will usually say it according to the Census Bureau in this year, like it's this amount. That's much better, and I trust that way better, and I would rely on that. If I had to be very accurate, I would, look at the sources. But if I just want to get a sense, I would do that. But if I asked ChatGPT that, I wouldn't even trust that as like a way, like as a way to gauge. Like it might just be totally wrong. So it depends what you're using ChatGPT for. Now, I think because of this, Google didn't get into it as early as, ChatGPT could. But what I think you'll notice is that, yes, they came out with Bard, but they came out with Bard super fast. And it's not that great, but it's not that bad either. And they're going to move very fast in this field. And I think eventually become a very competitive model because they have the tech for it. They have the machines to do it. They have the computational power. And this is a pattern that Google does a lot. I mean, Google Maps wasn't the first to mapping, right? Like Yahoo and MapQuest were like way ahead and they were not that great. You would get lost a lot. And Google came into it and said, you know what, we're going to be incredibly accurate. We're going to use information that is like from the source. We're going to use satellite imagery to compare what we learn so we can see if there's physically a street where, whatever data source gave us says there is a street. And so they came in and it came in as incredibly accurate and incredibly good. And they're just a standard.